There's a new FBI report that suggests that the terror group ISIS is connecting with hundreds, perhaps thousands of people right here in the United States, and that number is likely to grow. So what does the United States need to do right now to defeat ISIS? General Stanley McChrystal redefined counter-terror strategy while leading the Joint Special Operations Task Force in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's also the author of a brand new book. It's called Team of Teams, New Rules of Engagement for a Complex World. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Morning to you, General.
Thanks for having me.
What about ISIS? How do we stop it? It's over there, we think, but then you hear like what happened in Garland, Texas last week, and it's like, maybe they're here too.
Well, by design, ISIS feels like it's everywhere. Of course they're not. But the very nature of ISIS is they leverage technology to be able to franchise and to expand themselves and be more agile and more resilient than a normal hierarchical organization is. And when we try to respond to them with a normal hierarchy, a normal government centralized approach, we're too slow. And we can't reach out fast enough, and so we're having a basic mismatch.
And that is basically, so you chronicle that in your book. For a while, you guys should have been winning, and you weren't. How did you figure this? Then you realized you had to adapt to the enemy. And we'll discuss that shortly. But when it comes to ISIS, people say, well, Al-Qaeda in Iraq wasn't really defeated. They just went over to Syria for a while. You might beg to differ on that.
Yeah, I actually think Al-Qaeda in Iraq was essentially defeated, dismantled, and discredited for lots of reasons. I think the idea wasn't killed. And, of course, inside Iraq, when Maliki let the Shia begin to dominate the government and when Syria began to go bad, it provided fertile ground for the same kind of thoughts that ISIS grew up. I see ISIS as really the son of Al-Qaeda. They're different, but they're not.
How do we handle the fact that we've been facing some homegrown cells and threats here in the United States? What do we need to do differently to stay safe here, General?
Well, I think we obviously have to do internal security here, smart things, but we really got to go after the idea. They are fighting a war of ideas using technology that's really, really effective, and it reaches disaffected young people, particularly disaffected young men. We've got to have a counter strategy to that.
Right. How about this? Who's running our 60-member coalition? We used to say General Schwarzkopf, David Petraeus. Who's running it?
Well, you need leadership. There's no doubt about it. One of the things in the region right now is if you said, where is the leadership? There's probably a question mark in the minds of most people. What we've seen is several of the nations come together to try to operate in Yemen without the United States. There's some United States support, but without United States leadership. That's a bad signal I think we have to pay attention to.
Must be frustrating for you.
Must be frustrating for you?
Well, I'm focused on other things now.
Right. But one of the problems people who watch this stuff, they go, well, one of the problems is with this administration, with this leader, they will not refer to it as what it is. It's violent Islamic extremism. And yet it just comes out extremism.
I think when you talk about a threat, the danger of putting a name on it is people will all interpret it differently. But I think we have to be very serious about the threat that it is and the nature of the threat and the fact that if we don't get a clear stand against it, then it's going to be very difficult to contain.
I look at this administration, it seems to have subtracted General McChrystal, subtracted General Petraeus, subtracted Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. When we say that we need strong leadership, but yet the administration is removing some of the greatest leaders in the military that we have seen, it doesn't add up to a great solution here. Where are our leaders in the military, and why are they being removed?
Yeah, I think there are great leaders in the military now, many of which I watched grow up. But I would tell you, just great leaders is not enough. There's a leadership atmosphere. You take great people and put them on a team. Unless they are a true team, it's not an effective team. And I would say that the leadership atmosphere, the interaction between the military and civilian leadership, the interaction across the government is really key.
Your first book was absolutely incredible, but it was easy for you. You knew exactly what you were going to write about your experience. This book, Team of Teams, New Rules of Engagement for a Complex World, you go back in history, use actually basketball from today. First off, the concept Team of Teams, what do you mean? Well,
I grew up in a world with really elite small teams, and the theory was if you had the best small teams in the world, you could do anything. Then we found you couldn't, because when you scale, a number of discrete small teams does not equal a big, good team. And that's what happens in the U.S. government. That's what happened in our force. We found that unless you take a different approach, unless you network those teams so that they become a team of teams. Now, what that took for us was something we call shared consciousness, a level of radical transparency where we shared information across the command. We had a daily video teleconference with 7,500 people, and then we pushed decisions way down.
So they don't necessarily have to talk to each other directly. The leadership has to talk to each other. They have to get on their mission, move this way, move that way. One mission, different missions within that mission, and then come home. You bring up two examples, Lord Nelson, and you bring up the 2004 Olympic team. Well, the basketball team.
The 2004 Olympic basketball team, best basketball players in the world, bronze medal. Admiral Nelson had ships, and typically what they did in 1805 was very carefully control lines of battle and maneuver these ships, even though they were very difficult. He took a different approach. He told every ship captain, no captain could do very wrong if he puts his ship alongside that of the enemy. Basically, he created entrepreneurs of battle, and he said, here's our overall plan, make it happen.
Win.
Win. Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's exactly it. So this way you were invested in the project.
Exactly. So each of them was invested in the outcome.
The brand new book, which you're invested in, is Team of Teams, New Rules of Engagement for a Complex World. General McChrystal, real pleasure.
Thank you very much.
General.
Yeah. And thanks for everything you've done for the country.
Thank you so much.
All right.
And thank you enough.
General,
I guess we're leaving.
All right.
All right.
All right.
No, this is our salute to Heather.
Wow.
General, Heather's going to give us the news now with your permission.
I'll give you your briefing. Good morning,
Heather,
General.
after
Great
you.
to have you here. Thank you so much. Good